The following is an excerpt from a book wrote by Wyman Miller entitled Modern Divine Healing. Miller and his associates were eyewitnesses of Branham's 1951 healing campaigns in Africa. One of the most celebrated of contemporary faith healers is the American evangelist, William Branham. Branham testifies that an angel appeared to divinely call him to a healing career. He also claims to be an inspired prophet, and requires his patients to believe in him as such. During the latter part of 1951, the Branham Party visited South Africa and staged enormous healing campaigns in several of the larger cities. During the most of his campaigns, but little data was released to the public on the specific case histories, so that it was not possible to make very thorough investigation of the results that were claimed. I personally attended 2 services of Branham's Johannesburg campaign, but names and addresses of patients were not revealed, so no investigation could be made here on the claimed healings. Through the kindness of a Baptist minister, however, some interesting data was obtained on Branham's campaigns in Durban. This minister attended 4 out of 5 of the evening meetings, and in each instance sat quite near the Branham Party so that procedures could be carefully observed. The news editor of a Durban paper made available to him a list of claimed cures that were released to the press, and he personally investigated theses cases, some individual of whom he knew personally. In a letter to me, this minister revealed his findings in these cases and contrasted them with the pretentious claims of miracles made in their behalf. We could these observations from the letter. Mrs. N, a woman of about 45, miraculously arose from her bed and walked away during the first meeting. There were flashlight photos of her in the morning paper. Her husband was said to be amazed. But a little investigation showed me, 1, that she was suffering from menopausal disturbances, which laid her low for a day or 2, then left her normal possibly for a week or more. The paper said that she had been bedridden for 10 months. This was proved to be false. 2, her own doctor told me she was by no means bedridden. 3, an elder of her church had visited her 4 days previous to her healing, and she had entertained him to tea. 4, neighbors said they had seen her walking about. No denial of the false statement ever appeared in the press, either by her or by the church which sponsored this campaign. I personally interviewed the assistant medical superintendent of a well-known tuberculosis hospital here. More than 20 cases of those attending the campaign claimed to be cured. I knew several personally. He stated that the X-ray showed no change in lung structure, but added, of course, it is theoretically possible for the disease to have been eradicated from the body, in which case the residual damage to lungs would remain. But if this is so, we shall know within a week or 2 by means of tests. No such evidence has since been forthcoming. He told me that several were considerably worse for having gone. Excitement had induced hemorrhages in several instances. Cases of T.B. complicated with diabetes were considerably worse, he said, as shown by sugar tests. Of these 20 T.B. cases, no less than 6 were unshaken by the X-ray evidence, and still believed themselves either cured or on the way to it. I walked into one ward and one patient, J.A., said to me, "We are all cured here." The same patient has since discharged himself at his own responsibility. So has one other of the 6, but I know him quite well, and he is at home, unable to work, and far from cured. Mrs.
A. S., a heart case for 24 years, in and out of the hospital, and really a chronic case it seems.
She was cured for the first night, attending every subsequent meeting, climbing stairs, amazing her family, sleeping normally. Her case was specifically mentioned as one of the most astonishing proofs of divine healing. The detailed report of her healing appeared in the paper a week or so after the campaign's conclusion. The roving reporter had written it some days earlier. Unfortunately, I had spotted a funeral notice of the same name the day before the cure notice appeared. I rang the news editor and asked, "Did you know that this lady whom you have written up as a wonderful cure died yesterday?" "Yes," he said, "I have just discovered it." Dr. M. P., 23 years old, was a houseman at Addington Hospital. As a medical student he had leukemia, but bravely carried on his studies. He knew he was doomed, in the human sense, but showed amazing pluck. I was there when Branham dramatically singled him out and said, "Cancer of the blood. You are cured." It was dramatic in a big way. But I suspected that Branham knew all along that he was in the audience near the front, for he was a hospital case, and a doctor besides, and many others knew of his presence. Well, Dr. P. went back to the hospital, discharged himself the next morning, strongly against the advice of the medical superintendent, went to his home at Shepston, seemed well for 12 hours, got sick again, and was dead in less than a month. But this is not the worst. An American paper contained an article by Bosworth on the Durban campaign. In it, Bosworth cites this wonderful cure, adding that the hospital staff examined him the next day and found his blood entirely free from cancer, whereas exactly the opposite was the case. The medical staff thought him foolish to leave, said there was no change in his blood condition, and they were proved right. The same Bosworth article mentioned crowds of 80,000 to 100,000 at Greyville Racecourse, whereas its utmost capacity is just over 20,000. Of course, his friends in the States would not know any better on this point, and they would swallow it as it stands. The A family, well known to me, members of my church. No less than 4 of this large family claimed cures: the mother from arthritis, a daughter from some purely imaginary complaint, a little boy from a deficiency of red corpuscles, and so on. I have often visited this family. None of them appears to be any different than before. Mind you, the mother claims to be wonderfully improved, but she is just as she was before to outward appearance, shuffles about, and has pain in her joints. 2 other members of this family who are not in this business, but who are Christian believers, tell me that they see no change in their mother, their little brother, or in their sister. Yet this family is quoted as the one family that has benefited most by the campaign. And so it continues right through 46 cases. I have not made any check lately, i.e., within the last 2 months, but the evidence before me is such that I can come to no other conclusion that the cures claimed are so largely exaggerated as to be almost fraudulent in their claim.